All right. Thank you for starting the recording. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'll call the meeting to order at 10:02 a.m. on December 14th, and this is the Executive Committee. Beth, you want to go ahead and please take a roll call?
Sure. Scott Davis.
Here.
I didn't hear. Scott, are you there?
You're muted.
Are you hearing me now?
Oh, we hear you. Thank
Okay.
you. Filter. Here. Leffler.
Here.
McNulty.
Here.
Rosenthal.
Here.
Shepherd.
Here.
And Smith.
Here.
And then for CCS, we have Rebecca Malinowski, Deborah Wishmeyer, and Beth Stone.
Thank you so much, Beth. Does anyone have any additions to our agenda for this morning? Okay, and I need to change the view on my computer because I won't see if anyone does that cool thumbs up hand raise business. There we go. All right, seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda as outlined in our agenda and packet. Could I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda?
I actually have a question about one, and I don't know if that requires removing it from the consent agenda.
We could take it off, or what do you want to do, Rebecca?
5D.
5D. So we'll remove 5D from the consent agenda. Any others? Oh, thank you, Jeannie. All right, so then may I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda omitting letter D?
So moved, Jeannie.
Ryan, second.
Thank you. So since it's consent agenda, we wouldn't have discussion. Beth, will you please take a roll call vote?
Can I just confirm the second?
Oh, it's
Brian.
Is it
Brian.
Thank you. Okay. I'll do roll. Davis.
Yes.
Filter.
Yes.
Leffler.
Yes.
McNulty.
Yes.
Rosenthal.
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
And Smith.
Yes. So motion carries. Thank you, Beth. So Rebecca, how about if we start with letter D, Employee Benefits Corporation EBC by ACH?
Yeah, Jeannie, what's your question?
So my question is on the monthly administration fee that says $60. Is that $60 a month
Yes.
on page 12?
Yes, Beth is
That's the
nodding yes,
minimum.
and I believe her. Yeah, it's the minimum per month.
Okay. As someone who administers this internally, we just set it up in our payroll system and it takes no time at all. So $60 a month seemed very high to me. There's really no administration. I don't know if anybody else has an HSA plan for their employees, but ours is 900, so we deposit 450 in January and 450 in June. We set it up in payroll, boom, it's done.
I guess my question is, like, where are the employee accounts that my understanding is the administration fee is like because they set up the employee accounts where the employees can, like, where is that money going to?
So we have a Wintrust account that our broker had recommended. And so we just, there's an application form when somebody joins the HSA, which honestly very few people do. And so maybe it's one a year and we just give them the bank account application and they send it in.
We've been using EBC as our administrator previously for the FSA we had to stop because we didn't meet the anti-discrimination testing. We're too top heavy in usage. But the added value you get with them is they do the discrimination testing for you. They really hold your hand through the filings of the different paperwork and working with your payroll company. But they do not, Rebecca, they don't set up your bank account unless that's a new service.
I have no idea.
We had to administer through them, but, or we chose to, but each employee has to go find a bank on their own that does HSA accounts. And then we provide the bank account number to our payroll, who then does the direct deposit of our contributions to the employees' accounts. But EBC did not have any part of that with us, unless that's a new service they're now offering. Employees just had to go find a bank and set up their own account.
And I've done FSAs and I know there's a little bit more administration there with HSA. My broker could be leading us wrong, but I don't believe there's any discrimination testing or anything involved with that.
Well, there is annual.
Mhm.
If you don't pass it, there's huge penalties for the people who are getting these taxes deferred.
For the HSA as well.
Yeah.
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 Okay,
we told
that's something I'll
that's the
definitely,
discrimination test. We didn't pass actually either. We had to rely on the fact that Limerick, its policy itself passes, but yeah.
okay. I mean, that's
I think it's
something
worth
I'll,
the money,
I'll
you know,
ask.
$600 a year, whatever it is, $720 a year to take that IRS headache off your shoulders. Because if you also do the audit of your HSA like a year in arrears, so you'll be 11 months into it before you do the audit, and then find out you might be not passing the audit.
okay.
I think it's worth the money.
Okay, I'll check with my broker. That just seemed like a lot to me, given that we're not doing any work, so.
Yeah, I'll double check on the setup stuff. We're just getting all the paperwork in from them now because we just had, like, just as open enrollment closed, we're like, all right, we got to set it up. So I will make sure that our employees have everything they need for all their banking needs. But yes, we've been working with Employee Benefits Corporation to do other non-discrim testing, and we've been happy with their service. They've been really helpful. So as far as the cost goes, it is a cost, but I do feel like it's a good service. But I will confirm on the setup stuff as we're working through this. It's on our agenda for Beth and my one-on-one tomorrow. We're going to figure it out.
Not to confuse the matter, but we also use EBC for an HRA that we offer, a health
Mhm.
reimbursement account. It's a little more complicated because that deals with reimbursements, and we have to give them access to our bank account so they can pay employees the reimbursement funds. But I highly recommend the HRA if you're trying to get people off of a low deductible plan and onto a higher deductible plan. It's a nice intermediary step for people that are scared of the HSA. Each year we've had more people sign up for the HSA, but it was a slow start at first. But the HRA, actually, they don't really have a choice because we just made our other PPO an HRA, and then we reimburse them if they exceed the certain amount of deductible. We take some of that on to soften the blow for them. And the fact is, most people never hit their deductible, so we very rarely have to pay out these reimbursements. Just throw that out there. EBC does that for us as well, and it's a good benefit.
Okay. So Rebecca, next step for this proposed approval.
We need approval to pay them by ACH. So we'll set them up as so it'll be auto payments that requires approval per our fiscal accountability. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve to pay Employee Benefits Corporation by ACH. Or to
Okay.
add them to our ACH vendor list if that's easier.
So
I'll
we'll
make
enter.
through that motion. If that's
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren.
I'll second.
Thank you, Scott. Any further discussion? Okay, Beth, please take it away.
Davis,
Yes.
Dilger,
I will abstain.
Leffler,
Yes.
McNulty,
Yes.
Rosenthal,
Yes.
Shepherd,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes.
These kids.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to business. First on the list here is the office move. And that lease is impressive. I'll turn it over to Rebecca to tee us up.
Oh boy, that lease is really getting me. So as I said in my email yesterday, We have gotten attorney comments back, most of which say, this is a business decision. Are you okay with this? Or check with your real estate agent on this. So we are expecting our initial comments back from Jonathan, who's our real estate agent, tomorrow. I believe he's traveling today. We had the letter of intent at our last meeting, which kind of summarized the terms of the agreement. And then what I was hoping for today, although I don't know if we super need it, is a recommendation from executive committee to governing board to move forward with the lease pending agreement from the attorney and the real estate agent that it meets our needs. Of course, we don't have that yet. So if you'd feel more comfortable just kind of punting and sending it, like giving us the time to work through it between now and governing board and having governing board address it without a recommendation, that's fine. In reviewing the attorney comments, which came in yesterday, I'm still reviewing some of them. One that caught my eye is that we need to follow up with Lyra on something. There's a clause to waive subrogation of insurance, and Dennis, our attorney, was like, Lyra is going to be down with that, so you should check with them and try to get this out of the lease. So we still have, I would say a fair amount of legal stuff to work through. So I think if we get a recommendation from executive committee that's like, yes, this is the space, we moved forward with a letter of intent. In general, we're happy with the terms of the agreement. We defer to the attorney and the real estate agent to work out the terms of the lease. I think that would be good to just give governing board that sort of documentation, but I'm open to approaching that differently based on the opinions of this committee. It is a beast of a document, is what I'll say.
I am comfortable making a motion for our discussion, but I would motion to recommend the lease for 100 Tri-State International Suite 122 to governing board pending completed review by Klein, Thorben, Jenkins, and Cushman and Wakefield and Lyra.
Great.
I will
How about,
second that.
thank you, Pam. All right, Beth, please.
Right. I'm not sure. I just want to,
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I'm
Discussion, of
comfortable with
course.
that.
Forgive me.
Because I'm not sure. I mean, if we've already, so kind of timeline here, we've already recommended the letter of intent, correct? And it feels like this is kind of like in an in-between state right now. And I don't really know what we're approving beyond what the letter of intent already was. Like, we've already said that our intent is to enter into an agreement. It sounds like there's still a lot of details that are being worked out with this. And so I'm not sure like what that means that we would be recommending to governing board, other than to say, well, we're continuing to do what the letter of intent kind of said. That's
So
just,
it feels like it'd be a reapproval of the same thing.
right. It just kind of feels a little bit redundant. To me, it feels a little bit redundant for what we've already done. It would be different, I feel like, if we had kind of a document that was pretty much completed, and maybe there was like one small issue that still needed to be addressed, but it sounds like there's actually a little bit more than that that's still going into it at this point. So I'm just not sure if there's another motion that's really needed at this point. That's my perspective.
I'd agree with that. I don't really see what we're accomplishing by doing this intermediary step. My question is, what are the odds it'll be ready by, is it January 11th is the governing board meeting? Is that
I
even
don't know. I don't know the odds. I'm not a betting person. I mean, I think everybody is motivated to get it done. Although I am, we were expecting the lease draft like 3 weeks earlier than we got it. So I don't know what the holdup was in getting that document. So I don't love that as like a starting point for the negotiations. that's why we're not further along, is we were expecting it a couple weeks ago and got it last week. So I do appreciate KTJ turning it around really quickly and what appears to be some very thorough comments, but we just don't have, we're not as far along as Brian said, as we expected to be. So again, I feel okay with, just punting to governing board and saying, here's the lease. Executive committee didn't have a chance to thoroughly review it after the comments. So here's where we're at. Especially if this body feels comfortable with the previous letter of intent approval saying like, we like this space, we like this building, we want to move forward with this deal. That's, I don't want to get to governing board and have them be like, well, are we sure we looked at all the spaces? Like what, like, I don't, like, yes, we did, I promise. So that's all I
then
need.
the question
be
is
Heidi.
not about the space, but the details of the lease.
Mhm.
That'll be Heidi's job to not relitigate the same thing over again.
I'm on it. So we have a
Yeah,
motion.
and that's, I'm sorry, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I guess I kind of feel like the letter of intent already did that. And so that's why I would say, well, like that hasn't changed. And so I'm very comfortable saying, this is absolutely the space that we want. It's really just a matter of the details that need to be worked out with, between the attorneys and stuff like that to get to a final agreement before we could bring it for approval.
So I just have one other question about the timeline, and then I might rescind my motion. So does the lease have to be approved by governing board, or is it approved by us? Or is it approved by Rebecca? And if it isn't ready by January 11th, what happens with the timeline, particularly if it has to be approved by governing board?
So it definitely needs to be approved by someone who's not me. Technically, per our updated bylaws, it can be approved by executive committee, but we had previously said that executive committee would feel more comfortable if it went to governing board, because executive committee won't be executive committee for the whole term of the lease. It's not like a 1-year agreement, it's a longer term. We certainly had, with our previous lease, it seems like there was a little bit of everyone's eyes are on it, so no one's eyes are on it. And there was not a clear understanding of the terms of the agreement. So I think we're already like beyond that. I think that Beth and I are doing our best to like dig in and make sure we fully understand and make sure that executive committee is informed of the actual terms of the agreement. But the last time we talked about it at executive committee, it was the desire of this body to have governing board approve it. If it's not ready for January, we could call a special meeting when it is ready, which we could, if we're still under an executive disaster proclamation, hold via Zoom. So that should be easier for scheduling. Or 2, we could have executive committee approve it at their next meeting. I don't think that will be a huge deal for timeline if we get it done by February, because there is minimal construction that is happening in the space. It's mostly built to our needs. Now we're looking at a June move. So I don't think it would be a big deal if we had it by, the second week in February, but I can confirm that with everyone, especially as we're like, guys, you really want to get this agreement turned around so we can move forward and you can move forward with your construction.
So the thought with the timeline could be, let's see if we hit the mark for January 11th. And if not, you and I can circle back and talk about what makes sense moving forward. Okay, so for the motion that's currently on the table.
I think the reason I made the motion was that I remembered we wanted governing board to approve it. I was concerned about the timeline, and I completely trust Dennis Walsh at KTJ to negotiate this and figure it out. But if we feel comfortable with this, then I will rescind my motion.
Thank you very much. Parliamentary procedure, do we need anything else other than you making this rescinded comment? Are we good to go?
I don't think so.
All right, thank you. Well, I'll defer to my more we need Alex Todd here, right? To be our resident parliamentarian. All right, so if there's no further discussion on that, thank you very much, Jeannie. Anything else you would add, Rebecca, for the project update?
Nope, we have the kind of updates in the packet. In the consent agenda, you did approve kind of a preliminary list of things that are over $500, and we'll continue to keep you informed if other things come up. But we will be posting some things for sale, and libraries will get first dibs on purchasing any of those. If you need any folding tables, we got a bunch. So we've been working with our auditor on that, just to make sure we've got a good procedure, and then we'll essentially end up trying to give things away so we don't have to pay to move it or dispose of it.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
Giving away mugs.
All right, if there's nothing else, no other questions, comments on office move? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to new and potential members, starting with Warren Newport. Rebecca?
Things are going well with Warren Newport. As noted in the packet, it says, as part of the SOW, CCS will take on profiling work handled by Innovative in previous migrations. So Innovative, after originally giving us a quote saying like, it's going to be the same cost as migrating all your other libraries in, they were like, just kidding, it'll be $30,000 more. That's the correct face. Thank you for that face. So they said they went back and looked at like their hours logged, and it was so much more than what we had been paying, and blah, 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 blah. So I've had several meetings with them, and we've gone around and around, but essentially CCS is going to take on some additional work to keep those one-time costs steady. And CCS will track our hours. They said it takes them 75 hours to do this work. We have done most of this work before for other smaller projects, and it has not taken us 75 hours. So we're going to track our time as we're doing this work to see if moving forward we need to adjust, our implementation costs for members. But for us, we really think it's going to be like a shift of work and not, it's going to be more work, but we've spent a lot of time QAing the work that Innovative previously did in this area and getting them to redo it and then redo it and then redo it. So I feel really confident in our team and their ability to do these tasks. It also kind of frees us up a little bit on timeline because we're a little bit more in control at the beginning of the project. I am disappointed that, Innovative is, was not straightforward and couldn't honor the original pricing that they gave us. But we'll see how it goes with this ad. And then if we need to make changes in the future to new member billing, we will do that. Deborah, do you have anything to add about that? Essentially, we're going to add the Innovative used to do the actual physical work to add the library and the branch in the database. And the branch in this case is a bookmobile. And we will be doing that instead. That Mieko will be leading the project, and she and Deborah are heading virtually, I think, to a management team meeting to give them a nice overview of CCS in January. So we're excited about that.
Any questions for Rebecca regarding the Warren Newport project? Thank you for the update. So we'll move on to the Mount Prospect project update, including the proposed resolution. Rebecca, any framing you'd like to provide?
Yes. So at our last meeting, we spoke about Mount Prospect and their timeline and their desire to get a decision sooner rather than later. So their board actually meets tomorrow. So I should have, oh, no, we're good. So their board meets tomorrow, where they will be approving the IGA and doing all the things that the board does. What we are hoping to do today is recommend to governing board that they accept Mount Prospect's bid for membership when they receive it in January. So it's a little bit out of order. Per our discussion last meeting, we wrote a resolution to kind of outline some payment terms. Heidi and Sue and I met last week to review it. Sue's comfortable with this. She is available if we need her to come into this meeting. She said I could just shoot her an email and she'll monitor and jump in. But I think that we captured what executive committee was hoping to see regarding payments and voting and kind of tying that all together. I've also included in the packet their membership application, as well as the quote we previously provided them. And starting on page 30, their consortium recommendation, which I also called out in the email I sent to you. So that is the framing. And also for governing board, I can have the estimate of how member fees would be affected. As we've seen with all of our other libraries, like it will be good. Their OCLC fee is low now. So when they join, they will be taking on a higher proportion of CCS member OCLC fees. So that's kind of like the wiggle room where, depending on what libraries had been paying before they joined, whether existing members are going to go up or down. So with Warren Newports, they're going to go up, existing members are going to go up, and then with Mount Prospect, they're going to go back down. So it's good math for Mount Prospect overall, and it's good math for CCS members overall. It's just where those maths are different. So I'll stop there for questions, comments.
Seeing none, we would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
To recommend
To
the resolution
recommend.
to governing board.
Thank you. To recommend the resolution to the governing board as amended via email from Rebecca earlier, a new version from what is in our packet. So motion to recommend, please.
I'll move.
Thank you, Scott.
I'll second.
Thank you, Diane. Any further discussion? All right, Beth, please.
Davis,
Yes.
Bilger,
Yes.
Leffler,
Yes.
McNulty,
Yes.
Rosenthal,
Yes.
Shepherd,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, anything else on new and potential members?
I will just mention that I had a call from Tiffany Verzani at Waukegan. We've been playing phone tag, but it sounds like is just trying to get a handle. They're an existing Lincoln member. And so she's been there for 3 months and she's trying to kind of get an understanding of all of their existing contracts and their ILS, and they're also a Vega partner, and they're in Lincoln. So she wants to talk with us just about CCS and inquired if they had previously asked for any quotes. Beth and I both looked through our documents and we can't find anything from our tenure or in the paper files from previous directors. So I will keep you updated if anything progresses there.
Thank you very much. Okay, member concerns. Oh, TSIS. Rebecca, I'll turn it right over to you.
Well, Lauren very kindly met with the state treasurer's office and ePay with me, which was very helpful since I am not in the libraries. We're actually kind of at a perfect inflection point. Our Comprise agreement expires in February. So I have reached out to them to ask for opt-in pricing. Unless anyone objects, I feel, so we have to give notice if we don't want to renew. I feel like renewing under, it seems very clear that not all members want to continue to provide service through Comprise. So I feel confident saying, even in advance of governing board, we don't want to renew this agreement as it stands. Does anyone have any concerns with that Comprise component? Okay, so I will continue to work with Don at Comprise to get opt-in pricing for members for Comprise. However, I do think that, moving to ePay I do think, one, that it's reasonable if governing board wants to say it's opt-in if you want to provide online payments or not. That's fine. And then two, for those libraries that do want to, we can work with Comprise if folks like using Comprise, and or members can use ePay or another service if they would prefer to do that. So it's a little bit less standardization, but I don't think we're getting any benefit of having everyone do it the same at this point, except for kind of how the payment, like it's easy for us to provide documentation, like here's how payment's going to work. But ePay, I shared some pricing with you. It does seem to be much better pricing. I did get statements from Pinnacle, from Fountaindale Library, that there are no additional monthly fees other than like they're using the option to deposit into Illinois funds, which waives a small monthly payment. So they're using that option. So the charges on their statements are specific to credit card transactions. I did, and I'll ask Lauren to speak to the ePay meeting as well. I'll just quickly say I met with Pinnacle staff, as did Deborah, for a quick demo of ePay in PowerPack. And it's different than the current Comprise setup, but also similar. It's just sort of like the inverse, I guess. So you log into PowerPack, you check the boxes for the fines you want to pay, you press pay, and then it bumps you out to Comprise, where you don't have to log in. You can just add your credit card information and pay, or you can I'm sorry, I said it bumps you out to Comprise. It bumps you out to ePay, where you can just pay directly. There is an option to create an ePay account. We didn't really get into that with Pinnacle. I don't think it's necessary for patrons. And then with Comprise, you click pay fines, then you log into Comprise, then you check which boxes you want to pay and enter your credit card information. So you're still getting bumped out of PowerPack to a separate interface, but they're both real-time updates to Polaris, to the user account. The ePay interface is like not beautiful. It's a little garish, but the Comprise interface is a little outdated. So I think it's really 6 of one, half a dozen of the other when it comes to the user experience. And it does seem like the ePay pricing is just a lot better. But I'll turn that over to Lauren for additional comments.
Yeah, I think the ePay is a really good long-term solution, but not something that we can integrate prior to the expiration of the TSIS agreement for all libraries. I know there are a lot of libraries that offer both online payments and in-person payments at the self-checks. And so those folks would definitely benefit by just dropping the TSIS, the online payment option, and doing the in-person payment option. I worry about libraries that only have the online payment option. If it's an opt-in thing, because we haven't gotten opt-in pricing from TSIS yet, and we're talking about expiring in February, we don't want to eliminate their library's only payment option. If CCS no longer has the agreement and TSIS isn't getting back to us on how they can opt in, I would hate for them to just be like, oh, this agreement isn't in effect anymore, so now you're on your own, and figure it out, right? I think we need to do more of that. And like literally, I know Fox River Valley only has the online payment option, and then I came to ELA and we only have the online payment option. So there has to be more than just 2 that only have the online payment option. So I just don't want to leave them hanging. I am definitely interested in replacing TSIS with ePay, and I'm happy to have ELA be the guinea pig library to start with. I think that they have good hardware options, and as Rebecca said, the fees are going to be much better. And we're also frustrated with trying to call TSIS and get somewhere with them. Just dropping that alone is a huge advantage.
I can say we've been using ePay for point of sale credit card transactions forever. And they have a super cheap credit card swipe device, like $250 or something. If you have an analog phone line, you can avoid all the PCI compliance as well. And their rates are unbeatable. Nobody else can come close to the credit card rates. We absorb the fees, we don't pass them on, and they're very minimal. You do have an option with ePay to pass on the fees to your patrons. Another thing I was going to say is, as far as the uniform credit card acceptance for the online experience for our patrons, when we went with that, however many years ago, I think it was more important than it is today. Most of us don't charge late fees anymore. There's just not as much volume as there used to be. So the idea that from one library to the next, we have the exact same credit card interface, I don't think it's as important as perhaps it used to be. But I'm excited about going back to the ePay. All things come back around again. We accepted credit cards via ePay many years ago as a consortia. But I think it sounds like a better integration now than it was back then.
Yeah, and to Lauren's concern, I can feel like the folks at Comprise are, so Comprise and TSIS are separate, but they work together. So Comprise is the agreement that's expiring in February. And those folks have been, I think, pretty agreeable and easy to work with. So I'm thinking I can probably get some month-to-month service for that. You separately have TSIS agreements. I don't know when those expire. I imagine roughly the same time, but I think they're annual renewals instead of with Comprise, we had a 5-year agreement. So I can work with Don to try to get some continuity of service for libraries that, okay, we definitely want to move, but like ePay folks seemed also like they were like, we'll just get you set up. Do you want to get set up right now? How do you want to do this? So I do think that they'll work pretty quickly for those libraries that want to use it. And Lauren, you and I can talk maybe if you want to even get started, now with them and see how things go for timing. Heidi, I don't think governing board's going to have a concern about saying, let's drop this requirement to all do the same thing. Do you have a similar vibe?
Yeah, I think it just makes sense that
Okay.
there's so much less action on the website for credit card transactions that the need, as Scott reviewed with us, really isn't there anymore. And ending that agreement, as long as Lauren's concerns are addressed in terms of how that would affect libraries who want to continue and opt in, they don't have to make a last second transition or something. I think from my perspective, I think everybody will be on board with that.
Okay. So I will work with Comprise to, 1, not renew our existing agreement, 2, try to get into month-to-month, and 3, get opt-in pricing for libraries who might want to continue with Comprise for whatever reason. And then I will work with Lauren as much as she needs or wants me to work with her in getting ePay ball rolling, and we'll use her library as a guinea pig. Lauren, you're so brave and courageous. Charging forth.
Well,
and
easy for me to
hopefully
say, right? I'll talk to Cirque next, so.
the other thing we can do is, CCS can set up an ePay account for testing, and we can put it like CCS can set up an ePay account and then do some testing and see how things go. Then we'll also have it as a backup if someone needs to use it for like a month or two, and we can figure out like repayment of, whatever fines came in for that small period. I'm just making stuff up, but I'm going to talk to ePay about that also. Just again, if we can be a backup for libraries during an interim period, not as a long-term solution.
So Scott, when you're taking ePay payments, that's at the self-checks, or that's?
No.
Because that's not with Polaris.
No, it's at the checkout desk. if somebody has to pay for they're in-house and they want to pay for a lost book, they could go on to one of the OPACs or whatever, a computer, and log in, or they can just go up and we have a credit card swiper right there at the checkout desk. Easy peasy. Very simple, and it works out great.
And that's already integrated with Polaris?
No, they have to type in the amount.
Oh,
So you got to
okay.
go to the terminal and you have to type in what the amount the payment is. It's not integrated, but it is pretty darn simple and cheap. I see a lot of the solutions with the self-checks, they're crazy expensive. Our self-check's very simple, and most people, if they have issues with it, they're right next to the checkout desk anyway. But I know for like reporting and the money, it does get dumped into Illinois funds.
Yeah.
And then when it reaches a certain amount, I think it's 5,000 or something, we have like, we'll sweep it into our money market account. You just got to pay attention to that, because we had once it kind of built up a little bit and we didn't realize it, but we just don't get the money now into it. I think we can let it go all year and probably wouldn't have more than 10,000 in it.
You did mention an analog phone line. Who are you working with on the phone line? We have
That's
no
all new
analog.
fish, because we've been with TDS Metrocom for years, and they just told us they're going to pull all of our analog phone lines. So we're scrambling to find solutions for, because they can mimic analog with digital conversion devices, but we're concerned about burglar alarm, panic buttons, and some critical devices that use analog phone lines that I don't want to have dead in the water if we lose internet and or power.
Yes, because everything here has been transferred over, elevator, alarms.
Let's talk. Love to get some notes from you, Diane.
Yeah, it's not always perfect, but
Yeah, talk to you offline.
All right, great. Thank you. Anything else on TSYS, the great TSYS adventure? Okay, moving on to innovative updates. I'll turn it over to you.
Deborah, would you like to tackle this bad boy? And I'm here for
Sure.
support.
I would, I suppose, love to tackle this one. As you all unfortunately know, CCS has seen a significant increase in system performance issues over the last month and a half. These issues are caused by one of two Polaris jobs getting stuck and essentially causing a snowball effect of everything to break. And these two jobs are the jobs that control e-content in Polaris. So the import of new Overdrive e-content records, and then the job that syncs patron checkouts and e-content availability in our database. So as of now, Innovative knows which job is causing our problems, but they do not know why these jobs have seen this sudden increase in issues. So CCS has begun meeting with Innovative weekly. We had our first meeting last week, and we'll continue meeting with Innovative weekly so that we can share our perspective on these system down issues, and Innovative can provide us with updates on the work they're doing towards a fix. Again, as of yet, Innovative hasn't been able to pinpoint the root cause of our issues, but we're hoping that Innovative can quickly implement a fix within the software itself, as Rebecca had mentioned in her email to libadmin, either some kind of patch to the existing framework or a long-term solution, completely overhauling how e-content works in Polaris. Our sort of third option that we don't want to pursue, because it's a big decision, would be disabling e-content within Polaris completely until one of those two Innovative fixes happens. We don't have any new information to share since Rebecca sent that email to libadmin last week, but I think we're happy to take any questions or comments that the group might have.
I would ask the committee, as I said in my email and as Deborah just reiterated, if we turn off e-content, turning it back on is a big deal, because every time these imports get bigger, that's more and more system issues. So if we, have it turned off for some period of time and then we want to turn it back on, that's a much bigger import. And I mean, essentially, if we wanted to like get back to parity and like resync, we would probably need to have like some period of downtime, like a few days to like run all these imports, which is a lot. So that said, having a system down issue every other day is also a lot. So I'm wondering from your perspective, like, what are you hearing from staff, from patrons? Like, you know, we are very frustrated. We understand that this is hugely disruptive to your day, but like, I'm assuming you're not at the point where you're like, just get rid of overdrive, who needs it? But I want to give you the opportunity to say, just get rid of overdrive, who needs it, if that's where you're at.
Rebecca, I don't have it right in front of me, but what was the percentage of people that are checking things out or working with overdrive content from the OPACs? It was pretty low, right?
Like 1.8%, or
Okay.
somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
Most people are going into Libby and accessing stuff that way.
Is it a growing number of people that are using the catalog though? I mean, I figured it would start off slow, but it would build.
I don't think so. I mean, we've had e-content integrated in Enterprise and Power Pack for, I would say, 10 years, right? I mean, we've been on Polaris for 5 years, and we had integration in Enterprise with ERC. So, I mean, I don't think we're seeing a big shift. If anything, I would say as users get more acclimated to e-content, they become kind of loyal to a platform. You know, before it was like, oh, an ebook. I didn't know my libraries had those. Maybe. As I said on my email, that's something we're trying to investigate. We're trying to dig into some user data to see, you know, are users like clicking on e-content in the pack? Like, is there anything we can do to quantify that element of discovery? But I would say no, it's not a growing number of folks checking out from the pack.
I will say from personal experience that I have the apps on my phone because typically I listen to them in the car, and I never go through CCS. And if I happen to come across something on CCS, I'd probably still do it through the app because it's just easy.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is similar. I'm a Libby user, I'm a Kindle user. The only time I ever really like search the Swan catalog directly for a book is like, oh, it's book club, and I would take this an ebook or an audiobook or whatever, like I just need a copy. And that's when I would look. But again, that's like once a year that I'm like, oh, I wonder, this will just be easier for me to search in one place. So Kathleen is working on that investigation, and I think we'll have a preliminary report for governing board on, again, that sort of discovery aspect. I think we've all kind of assumed like we need it. Patrons need to know that we offer ebooks. We need to like look on cutting edge, like that, you know, this is a service that's offered. We need to use it and take advantage of it. I mean, CCS has had problems with the e-content since e-content integration started. So at what point do we just say, you know, this isn't for us? And I personally feel like I'm pretty near to that point, but they're not my collections, and it's not my money that is being spent on purchasing and promoting them. So I want to be cautious. Yeah, sorry, Jeannie.
No, that's okay. I mean, I think what I will hear from my staff, and obviously you said in your email to LibAdmin that it's, you know, only 2% are finding things through there. But I think what my staff will say is that when they're at the desk and someone is looking for an item and it's not available, but it's available in e-content, then they will say to that person, hey, you know, you can get this on Libby, download the Libby app. So, you know, they're not actually going through the catalog, but it is a, you know, a way that we market those services. So seeing that the thing is there, it has some value. I don't know how much value that has,
Right.
But that's what my reference librarians will say.
But it has value if it doesn't degrade the whole rest of the catalog, I guess.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Can I ask, and I apologize, I should probably know the answer to this, but ELA doesn't have Access 360. Is Access 360 available through the, through CCS as well? And so I'd be interested in that 1.8%. Is it higher in libraries that have multiple platforms for their e-content? Because then they're looking for, oh, it's not available by Libby, but I can get it through Access 360. Like if people know that Libby is the only source, then and they want e-content, then they would go directly to Libby. But
That's a good question. We can try to look at that. Deborah, do you understand?
Fortunately, Overdrive is the only vendor who can provide us information on e-content checkouts through the catalog. Both Cloud Library and Access 360 don't have that reporting capability. So we could definitely look and see, you know, is the percentage of Overdrive checkouts happening through the catalog different depending on whether the patron has or the library has access to Cloud Library and Access 360. So we could definitely look at that. Like in our initial numbers, it was all pretty consistently under 2% with not a ton of variation, but I'll go back and do a little deeper dive.
Okay, thank you. That was a tough one. Thank you so much, Deborah. Any further comments on innovative updates or questions related to this or another facet?
I will give a brief update on Vega Discover. So as of yesterday, we completed our second round of user testing with patrons for Vega Discover. So we, Kathleen, and some volunteers from our member libraries worked with 5 patrons to complete an hour-long user testing session over the past few days. So for Kathleen, it went really well, and it seems like patrons responded really warmly to Vega Discover. Kathleen will be working on putting together a summary of the findings, and the UX group will discuss those findings at their meeting in January, and we'll come up with a recommendation on whether CCS should move ahead with a soft launch with patrons, or whether we may need to add, based on the findings, add some additional blockers to our list with Innovative. So I think it was really successful. I'm excited to read that official report on the findings and see what conclusions we can draw from that.
Excellent, thank you. Questions for Deborah? Okay, excellent. Anything further on innovative updates? We'll move on to reports. No president's report. Our secretary?
No report.
And our treasurer?
no report.
Okay, moving on to committees and groups. Thank you for the summary provided on page 21. If there are any questions or if there's any additional information you'd like to provide, Rebecca?
No, not about committees and groups.
Okay, questions? I see none. Okay, the executive director report, please.
I would just like to congratulate Deborah on her promotion to Director of Member Services. As we discussed at the last meeting, it reflects a change in the department and the needs of CCS. So we are excited about that. I would also, I didn't put it in my report, but I would congratulate Rachel on the publication of a chapter in this book, Transforming Technical Services Through Training and Development, which goes over CCS, which covers CCS training. So CCS is making waves, being an example, and Rachel is Rachel comes from academics, and she's like, I'm writing an article, I'm publishing a chapter, and it's great. So I think it's a great avenue for CCS to continue to network and build and grow relationships. So we are excited about that as well. And then I am happy to take questions about anything in my report.
I don't see any. So thank you, Rebecca. So I just want to take the opportunity to wish you all a happy holidays. If you're traveling, safe traveling. To you, if you're hanging out at home, I hope you have lots of great books and good food. And I hope we have some pretty good weather. It'd be nice to get some sunshine. So thank you for a great year. Your work and support has been so appreciated. And thank you very much to the members of the committee and the staff on with us today and all of the CCS staff. So if there are, is there nothing else to add?
Heidi,
Beth?
sorry, we did skip the agenda item that just said January governing board, which
Oh, I
maybe
skipped
there's.
right over it. I
Maybe we
guess
don't
I
want to talk
just,
about that.
man, I'm putting forward my own agenda here. I'm like, don't talk about it, just vote on it. Don't talk about that. Thank you so much, Beth.
Mhm.
So the January governing board, I skipped right over it. Rebecca?
If we are still under a disaster proclamation from our pal, the governor will continue to meet remotely, Heidi, is that correct? Yep, okay. So
I haven't heard any concerns otherwise that we change our practices, so I feel very
And
good.
he just renewed it, right? He just
Okay.
issued another one. I don't know when it expires, but he just did it for the 30 days, couple of days
Oh.
ago. Does that sound right? So.
Okay. Is that what you needed for that sad skipped topic?
yeah, that's it. Just we'll keep
Yeah.
on keeping on.
All right, well, that's a great way to end the meeting. Everyone keep on keeping on. And if there are no objections, we'll adjourn the meeting at 10:59 a.m. Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Happy
Bye.
holidays.